Taehyung fell silent. Jungkook cried in front of him, and Jimin just stared without saying a word. What happened before the tears fell? Is Jungkook's apology harboring wounds that were never revealed? Why does Jimin's gaze feel like a painful judgment?
Done?
Is this a sign of the breakdown of friendship that has been praised by the army? Taehyung was silent. What really happened before Jungkook cried? Jungkook cries as he apologizes to Taehyung. Jimin's reaction says everything. There are moments that do not need words to destroy a person. There was a silence more deafening than a scream. And there was a gaze capable of piercing deep into the wound that had been covered with a smile. That day, in a room inhabited only by three names that have long been at the heart of a dream called BTS, Jungkook, Taehyung, and Jimin, time seemed to stop. But can time really stand still when one tear falls and the other is simply silent? Jungkook stood in the middle of the room. His head bowed, his hands clenched into fists, his body trembling as if holding onto something he had wanted to let go of for too long. In front of him, Taehyung just stared. Not angry, not smiling, not responding. Taehyung just shut up. A silence more painful than a curse. And Jimin, standing not far from the two, just looked at them with an inexplicable expression. Like someone who knows too much, but prefers not to interfere. But is it true that Jimin didn't want to interfere? Or is there another reason why he chose to remain silent? The biggest question arises, what actually happened before all this? Why is Jungkook crying like that? Why didn't Taehyung say anything? And why was Jimin staring as if judging? Is this just a common misunderstanding between friends who are too close? Or is it the beginning of something much bigger? A crack that can't be repaired? This story is not just about tears. It's about a truth that finally explodes after a long time of being buried. And it all started with one conversation that never made it to the public. A few days before the incident, Jungkook was visibly agitated. Some of the staff mentioned that he became more reserved than usual, even avoiding eye contact with Taehyung.
But why?
Does this have anything to do with the old video that suddenly went viral again? Or something more personal, deeper, more confidential? During one of their choreography rehearsals, Jungkook missteps. Instead of laughing as usual, he immediately apologized, repeatedly. Taehyung turned to him and said nothing. Not as usual. Jimin even looked at the two of them with a sharp look, as if something was wrong. Could this be an early clue that something is going on behind the scenes? When finally the three of them were in the same room at an internal discussion session that was supposed to only discuss the comeback preparations, everything broke down. Jungkook started with a trembling voice. "Hyung, I don't know where to start," he said as he lowered his head. Taehyung remained silent. Jimin stared intently. "I know I was wrong. I knew I shouldn't have said that back then." Jungkook continued, and that's when his shoulders began to shake. What did Jungkook say? Why did he feel so guilty? A source who does not want to be named whispers a surprising thing. There is a voice message from Jungkook to someone that Taehyung accidentally overhears. And the contents make all this make sense. The message was not an insult, not a slur, but a disappointment that Jungkook never wanted to express directly to Taehyung. But the message was heard. And from that moment on, everything changed. You know, I was disappointed not because he changed, but since he didn't say anything to me. That's what the message allegedly belonged to Jungkook. Who is he in question? And why does Jungkook feel betrayed in silence? Even more surprising, it turned out that Jimin heard the message first. But he chose silence. And now, when Jungkook cries, when Taehyung just looks at him, Jimin just stands.
No hugging.
Not mediate. Not crying. But all that was sculpted on his face. It was the most violent reaction ever seen. Did I ask Jimin's silence proof that he knows more than he shows? Or he's judging who's really guilty? That day, Jungkook's apology was no ordinary apology. He didn't apologize for the wrong word. He apologized for the hurt he had caused her that she had never told him about. And when he finally wanted to fix everything, it was too late. "I'm sorry for not being honest from the beginning," he said, staring at the floor, not daring to look Taehyung in the eye. But that's exactly what brought those tears, because he knew that now, things couldn't go back to the way they were. Taehyung finally opened his mouth, but not to speak. He took a breath, then turned to Jimin. "You knew from the beginning, didn't you?" he asked softly. And for the first time, Jimin's face showed an expression that no one had ever seen before. Guilty. Does this mean Jimin knew of the conflict between the two from the beginning, but chose not to convey? And was it his decision that finally made everything explode? After the session, the three of them were not seen together for some time. Even when they are in the same location, their sitting positions are far apart. And the army began to notice something strange, and I asked this the beginning of an emotional breakup that has actually been going on for a long time? Do the friendships we thought were perfect hold wounds that never heal? One thing is for sure, Jungkook's tears that day were not just regrets. It was a confession about fear, about loss, about guilt, and maybe about a love that is never conveyed in a friendship that is too deep to simply be called close. Now, the army can only ask, will they forgive each other, or is this the beginning of an invisible breakup? Is there something bigger behind all this? And what hurts the most? Is this the first time Jungkook cries, or is it the last time he can cry in front of someone who used to always make him laugh? But the moment wasn't just about tears. It was the quietest yet noisiest moment among three people who had traveled more than a decade together. How could it be that, after all they had gone through, finally only silence remained? Is this the price of fame? Or are the little wounds that are never talked about slowly becoming poison that rots inside? Another staff member who was present in the room during the emotional meeting confessed that after Jungkook's tears fell and Taehyung just looked at him with empty eyes, the atmosphere of the room turned cold, stifling. There was no other sound. Even Jimin's small steps when he came out of the room sounded like a bang. Jungkook stayed where he was. Taehyung sat at the other end of the room and just closed his eyes. There was a pause. And in that pause, there was a world that collapsed a few days after that. Jungkook disappeared from all social media activities. No posts, no live, not even a trace of anything, even though before he was so active greeting ARMY almost every day. Fans began to ask, is this just an ordinary pause? Or does he need time to heal his broken heart? Taehyung, on the other hand, posted a photo of the twilight sky on his personal account.
No captions.
Only the orange sky looks lonely, but full of mystery. And the army knows, it's not just any upload. Every time Taehyung says something in a photo without words, it means that his emotions are on top. But what tops? The height of anger? Peak of disappointment? Or is it the culmination of an unwanted breakup? And Jimin, he's probably the quietest from the outside. But isn't that exactly suspicious calm? When someone who is known to be empathetic, gentle, and quick to cry like Jimin doesn't show any reaction, isn't it more painful than crying? In one of the private interviews that has not been released to the public in full, Jimin had said something that now feels like a sign. Sometimes, we don't know what to do when two people we care about hurt each other. Is Jimin talking about them? Is it that when he says those words, his mind is caught between two worlds at war? Jungkook's world of regret and Taehyung's world of hurt. A 7-second video footage leaked to fandom shows Jimin staring at the phone screen for a long time, then smiling wryly before turning it off and closing his eyes tightly. That's it. But that expression, that little smile that never really reached the eyes, thrilled many hearts. Fans are speculating, did he just read Jungkook's message? Or is it a message from Taehyung that he has been keeping quiet all this time? Speculation grew wild, like sparks snatching through a dry forest. But what was even more shocking was when ARMY discovered that all the interaction posts between Jungkook and Taehyung, once full of laughter and sweet moments, had now begun to be deleted one by one from their personal accounts. Is this just a coincidence? Or was there a tacit decision made without a word? And what if it's not just about one mistake? What if it's about all the emotions that have been suppressed for a long time? About unspoken envy, about unspoken disappointment, about a feeling of mutual need that turns into distance. Several people close to their team said that Taehyung feels not talked to when big decisions are made within the group, especially when Jungkook's solo projects are a top priority for the agency. There is injustice, he said. There was a sense of abandonment, but Jungkook is also not without injuries. During a training session, he once said in a bitter tone, "I always wanted him, Taehyung, to be there, but he seemed to stay away." Is that feeling just a misunderstanding? Or is it true that Taehyung withdrew because he felt betrayed? Jimin, being in the middle of the two, is caught in a dilemma. Should he tell Taehyung what he knows? Or should he protect? But do you know what it's like to be Jimin in the middle of a storm he never created? That night, when everyone was gone, Jimin sat alone in the empty rehearsal room. The mirror around him reflected a figure that was usually full of light, now immersed in shadows. He played an unreleased demo song, a song he wrote secretly, about two best friends who slowly transform into two different worlds. Soft tones fill the room, but the lyrics hit like a hurricane. We are no longer children who smile for no reason. Now we have learned to survive without holding each other. Is that song about them? About Jungkook and Taehyung? Or is it about himself slowly losing the two people he trusted the most? Several voice notes were found in HYB's internal production drive, which then leaked into insiders' ears. In one recording, Jimin is heard saying softly while recording the song's bridge, "I don't know whose side to take, but I don't want to lose you both." The sentence wasn't directed at anyone directly, but it felt like a confession. Confession from someone who is broken slowly because of love that is not able to unite the two hearts that once linked. And on the other side of the world, Jungkook was seen in the studio late into the night. A producer confessed that he heard her re-record the vocals in a more depressed, deeper, sadder tone. She didn't cry, he said, but her voice seemed to have lost its light. What are they all really hiding? Is this just a private matter that happened to be leaked to the public? Or is it more than that, a story within a story, one that holds so much pain, betrayal, and love too deep for words to save? Someone from Taehyung's immediate neighborhood mentioned that he had disappeared for 3 days without notifying any of the staff. He turned off all cell phones, did not access social media, and rejected all messages. Even his personal manager panicked. And when Taehyung finally returned, he simply said, "I need time to remember who I am without all this." Those words made many people ask, what really happened during those 3 days? Is he avoiding someone? Or simply avoid his own feelings? Meanwhile, the ever-observant army began to assemble piece by piece. They find that in the latest content schedule, one long, awaited collaborative project between Jimin, Jungkook, and Taehyung is suddenly cancelled. Without explanation, without replacement, without apology. And it's not a coincidence. Some longtime fans recalled how once the three of them had promised to make a threesome song, a song that would be a reminder of their eternal bond. Even Taehyung once said, "If we are busy later, at least we have one song that can remind us of everything." But the song never came. Those who came were silent. Distance. Tears that were never released. But everything changed when a photo appeared in the online community, a screenshot of an alleged conversation between Jimin and an old friend of his. In that chat, Jimin wrote, "They don't know how deeply they hurt each other. Everyone wishes we could go back to the way we were, but sometimes the wounds are too deep to be forgotten with just a hug." Was it really Jimin? No confirmation. But the tone and context are too profound to ignore, and as fans try to find evidence that all is well, one by one they find more clues that the togetherness may have begun to fray. Taehyung no longer mentions Jungkook in his interviews, even though he used to always enthusiastically mention his little brother. Jungkook did not mention Taehyung's name when asked about the members he misses the most while touring solo. Only Jimin is called. And Jimin always answered with a smile that was never the same. But does that mean everything is over? Not necessarily, because some people see that little light, little hope. On a recent live show, Jimin suddenly said, "Sometimes we just need time. Sometimes the people we love the most are also the ones who can hurt us the most. But that doesn't mean we stop loving." And somehow, after that sentence, Jungkook posted a heart emoji. Not writing, not a song. Only one heart is purple. A few hours after that, Taehyung posted a photo of a blooming lavender flower. No captions. But all know, lavender is the epitome of forgiveness, tranquility, and memories that do not want to be forgotten. I ask that a sign. Are they slowly trying to heal? Or is it just a small gesture too late? The army was silent. The world is waiting. But one thing is certain. When Jungkook cries in front of Jimin and Taehyung can only stare silently, That's when the world knows that not all wounds can be healed with